Moving on, we have the overview of internet and web. Okay, I already defined internet. I said the internet is a long wire that connects various computers. Some people might be wondering that wire bit bow. Okay, a more formal definition. The internet is a network that contains a group of interconnected computers, also connected together by a single wire. Wire in this case can mean probably fiber optics or maybe copper wire. Never can tell. So, how did the internet come into existence? It all started in the 1960s when the U.S. federal government wanted to, they wanted to exchange federal data. Those are top classified informations available to only a set of people. So they wanted to find a way to exchange it within the nation. And then they started a project they called the ARPANET, ARPANET. Your assignment is to go and look for the meaning of ARPANET. Okay. So they started the ARPANET with the sole aim of exchanging federal data within the nation. So they kept on using it, and it was working for them. So a few years later, groups of organizations came together and then they founded the internet. The internet is so powerful, it is referred to as the global network. The systems that are connected in that network are able to communicate with each other and exchange data. I've mentioned that before. So in the world we find ourselves today, we can use applications like Skype, WhatsApp, we can send emails, we can buy things online, we can do many other things, all because these computers are connected together in a single network. From our previous knowledge, we know that for two machines to be able to communicate, there needs to be a protocol. That is, there needs to be a laid down rules that they are going to follow. It's just like I want to speak, okay, me as Mr. A, I want to communicate with Mr. B. Before we say anything, I let Mr. B know that we are communicating in English. So the concept of English language is that laid down rules that we're going to follow. So we'll be following the rule of grammatical, we'll be following the rule of grammar, we'll be following the rule of like that. So the laid down rules in English language is what we are going to be using to communicate. So in this instance, data is exchanged on the internet using the TCP IP protocol. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and then the IP stands for Internet Protocol. So TCP IP, that is the Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. So that is the protocol that the internet uses to exchange data. Coming to the web, a lot of people are confused about the two terms, internet and web. One thing that is sure is that internet is not the same as web. While internet is a group of interconnected computers, the web is just a way to access those information over the internet. It's just one of the ways. In 1989, a scientist, Tim Berners-Lee, invented the web. I think about 5 years later, various organizations also started making attempts and they were able to create their web browsers. That was when we had browsers like Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari. The web also uses a protocol to access data from the internet. The protocol is called the HTTP protocol. I'm sure all of us are familiar with the HTTP because it's the first word that we see at the beginning of URL when we access links over the browsers. So the HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Quick question. Who controls the internet? I'm awaiting your responses.
Um, I think we all control the internet. We control the internet.
Okay, great answer. Can I have another question? One more answer. Okay. Um, Actually, no one controls the internet. No one controls the internet. So moving on. What is HTTP? I already said HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. There is one rule that governs the HTTP. It is called ask and it is served. I will explain that process later. So from Hypertext Transfer Protocol, we can pick hypertext. Hypertext are they are available in computers in the internet, yeah, and then they could be in form of videos, images, or sounds. So coming back to HTTP, there are two roles involved in the process. The first one is called the requester, and then the second one is called the provider. The HTTP protocol helps to establish the communication between the web browser and then the destination server. So the HTTP process is needed. Imagine two machines sitting together in the internet. Okay, or let's imagine I'm on my computer here and then I want to view the Google website. Then I go to my web browser, I open it up, and then in the search bar, I type in www.google.com. What happens? So let's look at what happens behind the scene. First, that request that I'm making from my computer to view that website is sent to my ISP, which is my internet service provider. Um, those are the companies you purchase your data from. It could be MTN, um, Glo, and the likes. Here in US, it could be um, the likes of AT&T and so. So when the ISP receives the request, the ISP transfers the request to the DNS. We'll get into this later on. So once the DNS gets the request, the DNS searches for the name in its database and then returns it back to the ISP. Then from the ISP, it goes to the server. Okay, what are servers? Servers are computers that are connected to the internet 24/7. You can imagine a server as a large library that contains many books and resources, and then you can go to it to access it. But without proper, should I call it documentation? Without proper means of identification, yeah, it will be difficult to find a resource or a book that you are looking for. So, hence the passage through the DNS. We'll get to the explanation later. So once the server locates the file you are looking for, once it locates the Google website that you're looking for, it returns it back to your ISP and then your ISP displays it on your screen. All this process I mentioned happens within milliseconds. So we can't even tell that such thing is going on behind the scene. Moving on, we move on to what is IP address and DNS. Okay. So like I said, IP stands for Internet Protocol. It is used in the internet to communicate between two systems or more. All the systems uses the internet protocol to communicate. Then on all the devices that are present on the internet, including my mobile phone I'm using right now and your mobile phone, all our devices have a unique address. Look at it as we have SIM cards, and then all our SIM cards are registered with a unique phone number. So similarly, every computer on the internet has their own unique address. Why is that? It is such as to identify each computer out of the billions of computers on the internet. Um, you can actually look up your IP address on your phone, or if you're using a PC, you can look it up on your PC. You can also search for the IP address of various websites that you use every day. It's available to us. So the IP address has two versions or types. The first one is the IPv4, IP version 4, and then we have the IP version 6, written as IPv6. So for the IP version 4, it contains just numbers. Then they are 32 bits long, and then each section in the numbers are separated by the dot. What I mean by 32-bit long is like, let's say we have a sentence. I know there are words in a sentence. So the IP address is like a sentence. Then we have group of numbers. It can be like 192.168. So 192 is one section separated by dots. Then we have 162, then maybe 10 like that. So that's what we call IP address, IPv4. Then for the IPv6, they are a combination of text and letters. Then they are 128-bit long. That is, they contain 8 sections. Then moving to DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name System.
Please, can you recap about their IP6? You said they are a combination of number and alphabet.
Yes, number and alphabet. So it can be like maybe 3CFFE. They are separated by columns. So 3CFFE, then colon, maybe D6, like that. I'm going to show you the one on my phone. I'll show you how to check your IP address. So looking at DNS, let's take a look at, okay, yeah. We all store our phone numbers in a contact list, but we don't store it like that. We store it with names so that we can easily recognize or identify the owners of those numbers. Similarly, we store the IP address with a name in the domain naming servers, hence the need for DNS, which is the domain name system. So there are organizations we call domain hosts. So there are or domain name providers, the likes of GoDaddy.com, Namecheap.com, HugoHost.com, and so on. So these organizations sell out domain names that you can attach to your IP address so that it can be easily remembered whenever the client wants to access the website. For example, now, let's say I want to access yahoo.com and I don't know that yahoo.com is the English name for the IP address. Then I will have to memorize 124.108.103.103. If I have to memorize just those numbers for only yahoo.com, let's say I want to visit about 5 to 6 websites in a day, do you know how tedious that will become? But because they've actually gotten a domain name and then they've attached it to their IP address, it takes about 24 hours for you to be able to update all over the world. Then from then, all the domain name servers will be able to call that particular website whenever you request for it. So our task is going to be that we go to namecheap.com and godaddy.com. If you have any name in mind, probably you are looking at, okay, probably when I eventually learn coding or when I learn web development, I'm planning to build a website, maybe a school website or a blog website or so, any type of website. So that name you have in mind, check for it online whether it's still available or it's taken. So lastly, we look at client side and server side. So there's what we call client server technology. in basic terms, it's just the relationship between my computer here in Seattle and then probably a server in London. Um, just as I explained before, when you log on to your computer and then you open your web browser, for instance, you want to view the Google site. When you type the Google site and you click enter, you are sending a request to the server via the HTTP protocol that you want to access Google's site. So the server in return receives the request, processes it, and then respond to your request by sending you probably the files that you need to access that site. So it sends it back to you, and then you're able to see the Google site displayed on your web browser. So that's just the relationship between the client and the server. So all actions that take place on your computer in order for you to access that site is called the client side. And then every action that takes place on the server in order for you to be able to return that request and send you the appropriate files for you to view what you want to view is called the server side. So we finished the first section, which is called web basics, and I hope we're able to understand the concept I explained. So we'll be moving to the next section. Okay, basic tools. Yeah. So to start with, as a web developer, oh, sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So we are looking at basic tools. So I said, as a web developer, you need tools to work with for you to be able to achieve your desired results. So the first tool you will be needing is called a text editor. So this text editor is not the regular word processing applications we use like Microsoft Word or what other processing app we use, or it's not the regular word processing apps like Microsoft Word. It has to be a text editor like Notepad, because um, there are certain rules that you follow when you are writing codes. Some might require indentation, some might require blocks and the likes. So when you use word processing apps, it edits and ruptures the structure of your code, which is not ethical. So we need to use text editor that we just leave it as you write it, that's how you get it. So Notepad is advisable, but we'll be looking at um, other advanced IDE that can enhance your work as a developer. So the first one is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code can be gotten from the Visual Studio website. You can either download their application and install on your PC, or you use their web version. I think, yeah, the web version is available also. Another option is Sublime Text. Another one is Atom. Another one is Vim. But I'll emphasize on Visual Studio Code. You can actually pick whichever IDE is cool with you, but Visual Studio Code is preferable because of some advanced features that it provides you with as a developer. So next, we need a browser. Browsers are the applications we use regularly, the likes of Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer, maybe Opera, and so on. Then we need what we call terminals. Terminals include PowerShell, maybe Bash, Git Bash, IPA, or ITAM, depending on the type of PC we are using. For design, every website needs to have a design. So before you think of developing a website, you should have gotten the design ready. So it's that design that you follow to implement. It's the design you follow. So you use your coding ability to implement the design with your codes. I hope you got that. So design applications include Figma, Adobe XD, Sketch, or Photoshop. So those are the basic tools that we need to get started as a developer. Next, we'll be looking at the front-end path. As a front-end developer, what are we looking at?
Good afternoon. Please, I cannot see the screen. Your screen is not showing on my side.
Oh, okay. I'll look into that. Okay, while I'm working on that, you might just want to keep on listening to me. Front-end web development refers to what appears in the browser, and it includes elements like the navigation bar, user interface elements, the content presentation, and then it usually involves using the likes of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, along with other appropriate frameworks to achieve your aim. So under the front-end path, we have HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS, though they are not programming languages, HTML is a markup language, and then CSS is a styling language. So I'll just give us briefing through. I'm listening.
What else, sir? I can't see anything here. The screen is. I can't see the screen, sir. I don't know. Maybe
the screen is still not showing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think that's for everyone. The screen is not showing.
Okay. I'm coming.
Thank you, sir.
Down. 1 second. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. You're showing now, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the slide is loading. Okay, I was talking about the markup and styling languages like HTML for markup and then CSS for styling. Can you hear me?
You can, yes.
Okay, good.
Sorry, your screen is no longer visible.
What's happening? Okay, I guess I will just have to continue. Just keep on listening to me. You'll get what I'm saying. Probably after the class, I can send you the file. Is that fine with us?
No, it's not.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
Sir, you might want to continue speaking while you work on the screen issue so that we don't waste much of our time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
you can.
Okay, I'll just continue from where I stopped. Okay, what issue is this like? Okay, Abi Somod, can you try to present the file?
Okay, I'll do that.
Garba, is there a problem? Okay, very good. Can we all see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, I will continue then. So I'm on number 3. Okay, no, I'm on number 2, markup and styling languages. So I said HTML is a markup language. HTML was created by Tim Berners-Lee in 1990, and it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. We can see a striking resemblance with we can see a striking resemblance between HTML and HTTP, the protocol that works with the web. You know, it was Tim Berners-Lee that invented the web. He's also the one that created HTML. HTML is the most common language on the web, and as a markup language, it lets us to provide information along with instructions on how to interpret it. HTML relies on tags. The tags include a greater than sign, a word in between, and then a less than sign. Sometimes there might be a slash inside if it's a closing tag. Overall, there are about 145 different tags in HTML, but web development does not require you to constantly use them all. You only use some of them when you are creating web pages. You can't use all. And some of them are much more common than the others. So moving on to CSS. CSS is a styling language. It was created to help eliminate the need to include a long list of HTML tags. You know, when HTML was created, in order to style the website, they also added some HTML tags that worked as styling. But then, after developing, our HTML code is usually very long and bulky. And then when probably want to debug or there's an error somewhere and want to locate the error, it was usually tiring and cumbersome. One couldn't find the error quickly, and then it took time to resolve. So CSS was created to help eliminate that. CSS allows us to leave out the style formatting element from the HTML page and then use what we call a style sheet file to style our HTML page. We need to link the two files together to be able to use it interdependently. Then we have JavaScript. The original goal of JavaScript was to make pages alive. We can think of HTML as the skeleton of web pages. Then we can look at CSS as the flesh that covers the skeleton. You know, from the flesh, you can tell whether a website is, you can tell whether a person is beautiful or handsome. So from the flesh, we can tell whether a website is looking very nice or it's looking very bad. And then we can look at JavaScript as the way the person carries on him or herself, in the sense that JavaScript deals with interactivity. The programs that are created with JavaScript are known as scripts. JavaScript itself is a scripting language, and then they can be written in the HTML file or can be written in a separate file, and then you link it to the HTML file. The scripts are executed as well as provided in the form of plain text. So you don't need any special compiler or a special program to compile the code after writing it. It executes line by line as soon as you write it. So what are the advantages of JavaScript? Many web developers in the world we are today are very fond of JavaScript for a variety of reasons. One of it is its simplicity. Then another is its full integration with CSS and HTML. And then it's supported by all of the major browsers, which includes default enabling. So coming back to the front end part, that is time to choose. That's the number 3 on the slide. So after learning the basic languages of the web, You started with HTML, then you learn CSS, then you learn a bit of JavaScript. Then what next? Then you now have to specify which road you want to tread, which path you want to go. There are three paths, or let's say there are two paths, then one is a combination of the two. So the first one is what we call the front-end path. So as a front-end developer, you'll be dealing with everything that appears in the browser. It could include the navigation bar, the user interface elements, and the contents. And then it usually involves using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML alongside the appropriate frameworks. I think I said that earlier. Then we have the backend path. The backend path is the portion of programming that stays on the server and it remains unseen by the user. That is, it is strictly behind the scene. You don't know what is going on there. The backend holds everything that is needed for the front end to work well and display. And common languages that we use are maybe Ruby, Python, and Java to help with data, alongside others. Then we have the full stack developers. This path, the people that are here, they have a solid understanding of both the front and back end, and they are able to combine both to create world-class websites. So we'll be looking in deep of the front end path. If you will be going with the front end path, you need to learn JavaScript. When you learn JavaScript, you need to know the basic syntax. You need to know some certain concepts like DOM manipulation, things like fetch API, JSON, then most importantly, ES6. Then you might move on to learn TypeScript. Then you can also learn front-end frameworks like React, Vue, Svelte, or Angular. Then you need to learn state management, like the context API for React, Redux for React also. Then you need to learn Vuex for Vue, or services for Angular. Under the front-end framework, there's what we call the server-side rendering, and then the static site generators. So under the server-side rendering, there are two frameworks. There's Next.js if you are using Vue, and then Next.js if you are using React. Then for the static site generators, we have Gatsby, Next.js, Gridsome, Next.js, and 11ty. Also, we have more tools. We have package managers, either npm or yarn. We have build tools such as task runners, linters or formatters. We have module bundlers. Then we have version control. This version control is very, very essential in the life of a web developer. So we have Git and then we have GitHub. More tools that is going to enhance your productivity. We have browser dev tools. We have if you are using the Visual Studio Code text editor, we have extensions that you can install in that application that will increase your productivity, such as Emmet and Axios. I can tell you there are a wide range of applications with JavaScript. So if you are learning JavaScript, it is important that you specify the path you want to go along with, and then you tread it softly. So we'll be looking at the backend path. So if you are choosing to go with the backend path, you need to first pick a backend language. Some of the languages available are JavaScript also, with the framework Node.js. Then we have Python, we have Rust, we have C#, we have Java, PHP, Golang, and Ruby. We also have backend frameworks: Laravel for PHP, Spring Boot for Java, Ruby on Rails for Ruby. We have Express for Node.js. We have Django for Python, Flask also for Python, and we have Blazor for C#. After picking a language and probably a framework, we need to select a database. So in this case, we can actually go with relational databases or NoSQL, or otherwise known as cloud database. So if you're going with relational, you need to learn either of PostgreSQL, MySQL, Azure Cloud SQL, and MS SQL. If you are going with cloud database, you'll be learning MongoDB, Airtable, Amazon Web Services, FaunaDB, or Firebase. After that, we move on to APIs. What are APIs? APIs are application programming interface. Then we need to learn authentication, either using OAuth, JWT, or we use providers like Firebase. Then there are other paths beside the front end and back end paths in web development. We have others like mobile applications. You can create web applications using React Native, Flutter. You can use NativeScript or Ionic. And then you can also specify in making desktop applications using Electron. So you can make applications like VS Code, Twitch, Slack, Figma, or Discord. You can also specify in machine learning or AI. Languages you can use with this are Python, TensorFlow.js, or Brain.js. JavaScript has some really funny frameworks. Then lastly, we can specify in developer. We can specify in deployment or DevOps. They call them DevOps engineers. So as a DevOps engineer, it's either of two ways. You can go with hosting, or you go with CMS, which is known as content management systems. So if you are going with hosting, okay, there are about 5 paths as a DevOps engineer. You can be in the hosting section. You can be in charge of web servers. You can be in the testing section. We have software testers and the likes. You can be in the serverless part, and you can also be in the virtualization part. For the hosting part, there's a static deployments, that is website that can I say website that is hosting services that can host static websites. When I say static website, it's a website that are created with HTML and CSS. There's no interactivity, they're just there. So they can be hosted using Netlify or GitHub. Otherwise, if they are not static, you can make use of Heroku, Linode, House, that is Amazon Web Services. You can make use of Azure or Vercel. Then if you will be going to the web servers path, you can make use of Nginx, Apache, MSIIS. If you will be in the testing section, you can go with unit integration, functional testing, and the like. If you'll be dealing with serverless services, you can go with House Lambda or Netlify. Then if you will be in virtualization, you will be using either of Docker or Kubernetes. As for the content management system part, there is what we call the traditional CMS and then the headless CMS. For the traditional CMS, we have WordPress and Drupal. WordPress is very common because it is built on PHP, and then it is one of the common tools people use to build the likes of e-commerce websites and so on. So if you are using headless CMS, you'll be learning Netlify CMS. WordPress can perform the same function. You'll be learning Sanity.io, StrapEye, Prismic, Contentful, or Storyblock. So those are the paths that are available in web development. You can also choose to learn CSS frameworks. After learning your HTML and CSS, there are some CSS frameworks that you can also learn, such as Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap. Some other ones include SAS, SCSS, and the like. Can you move to the next slide? Okay. So for motivation and personal development, so I don't have much, but I'll say that as an aspiring developer, there are several ways to learn web development. You can either probably attend a university that offers a degree and you get a degree in web development, or probably a similar major, maybe computer science or something related to it. You can as well attend a programming school or enroll in an in-person or online coding bootcamp. So I also say that attending a web development class or bootcamp does not guarantee that you will become a professional developer. Some people when they just they search and they say, okay, where can I learn this thing? And I say, okay, these organizations are the best that offer these services you are looking for. Then they just enroll and feel relaxed that so far they are the best organizations in this in delivering this kind of services. Then definitely I'm going to become a successful developer. That's not how it works. So while we are learning at the class or bootcamp, it's going to provide you a foundation for your learning. But the best way to master these coding skills is to practice. There's a saying that says practice makes perfect. So although it is also possible to teach yourself from scratch, but it can be much harder to gain a full understanding of the concept all by yourself without guidance provided by probably a classroom setting or a mentor. Finally, if you want to build web pages, the best place to start with is a basic introduction through probably a web development class, just like this one you've attended. So it's basic, and then it opens your eyes to the various paths that are available in web development. From there, it is important to practice each specific programming language that you are using in the area of web development you are interested in. Because when you practice the languages related with the web, that way you can own your skills and see to it that the various skills you've learned are put into action. Even if you do not plan to become a web developer, probably you are just learning, so you don't only be a consumer that is using end product. You just want to know what is going on behind the scenes. You want to know how these web pages, how these websites come to life. You want to know the secret behind it, and you want to be sure that you are not in front of a magician or something. So even if you don't plan to become a web developer, learning about web development can provide you with an insight to your daily interactions online. So web development samples, these are websites that we interact with on a daily basis. can view as much website as you can. Different categories. You can visit off post to look at an example of a news or blog website. So off post is an example of a blog website that you can visit. You see different functionalities. Then the likes of Google search engine, you can visit Udemy, EDX, or Coursera. They are online learning websites. You can visit the likes of Amazon, eBay, or Jumia. They are examples of e-commerce websites. You can visit the likes of UNICEF, UNESCO websites, and the likes. They are example of non-governmental organization websites, and so on like that. There are a variety of websites on the web, and you can view them and use them as samples. So hacks and tips. Okay, this is quite task. Okay, so when you start your journey as a web developer, there are some things that you need to know beforehand before you get into the journey, so that when you start developing websites, you don't get stuck and you don't feel like well, this stuff is not easy, and then you want to back out. One strong thing that you can do to yourself is just be consistent. Even if it's a line of code every day, just make sure you show up. You don't necessarily need to rush yourself or set a deadline for learning some concept or something. You don't need to do that. Also, um you don't need to master a concept before you feel you should go to another concept. When you are creating projects, those concepts will come handy, and then you can even understand what you are doing better. So to get started, you need your web browser, you need your text editors, you need your PC. It could be a laptop or desktop, it doesn't matter, provided you have your what's it called? You have your web browser on it, and then you have your text editor on it. You are good to go. Though web developers prefer to have another large monitor aside from their PC that they're using to code, so they can actually view their website. You know, in the world we are today now, there are various devices that access the internet. I think the smallest screen size now is going to be a Samsung Galaxy Fold, about I think about 28 pixels or so in width. I'm not sure. So you need to be able to optimize your website so that every user on the internet can view your website without rupturing your website. Let's say, for instance, now when I start developing my website, I'm using my laptop to develop the website. My laptop screen is about 1440 pixels, and then I use that to develop the website. If I want to view that same website on my mobile phone, it's going to rupture that website to fit in the mobile phone. So there is what we call responsive design in web development. So responsive design is essential because it allows every user to be able to view your website at the best state. I don't know if we've noticed when probably we're using a website and then we switch to desktop version. You see the way the website tries to adjust itself to fit in for desktop, and then when you change to mobile, fits in to change to mobile. So with all this being said, uh, I would let me see if I have another thing for you. Yeah, so the reason for web the reason for responsive web design is all for accessibility. We are trying to create one web for all. There might be people with vision impairment, maybe auditory impairment, and they might be using stuff like talkback or uh, assistance to actually access the web. So you don't want them to get lost, or you don't want them to experience issues while using your website. So you need to put them into consideration. So in conclusion, as a web developer, understanding what a web developer does is the main task. Then your task is to build and maintain a website. However, most professionally in certain organizations, it involves focusing on projects, not only building and maintaining website. You focus on long-term projects or short-term projects, and then you need the skill of collaboration. So you work in a team. A team consists of different people with different fields. So instead of you going ahead to become a front end, back end, DevOps, mobile app, desktop app, and the likes, you can just pick a path and focus on it. When you get a job, you will be working in a team of other developers that have specified in other paths too. And then you as a front end developer, you are only creating the UI of the application or website. And then the people at the back end can handle the authentication and the rest of the server side. So with this, we have come to the end of our web development session. I hope it was beneficial to us all. I strongly apologize for the inconveniences that happened, and I hope you will find a spot in your heart to forgive me. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. It was quite a wonderful session here. Is there anyone with a question?
Okay, I think I still have about 17 minutes left. The session was scheduled to end by 3:30. So if you have questions, I will gladly take them and try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Sir, without getting a system, please, can we operate the JavaScript on phone?
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Hello. Are you there, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the class. Jazakallah khair. May Allah be with you, sir.
Amen.
My question is that, so for one to become a web developer, a full web developer, so that means one cannot work alone. It has to be in group, like work in team. So one cannot be a web developer, do change, setting a site by himself, making everything done by himself without us getting other people join together. Because at times I used to see some people say they are a web developer, they design web, and they will not be in team. At times I used to see some organizations that they are web developers, that they are of varieties of skills that merge up together to come together to serve services like that. And I've seen people like they say that they are a web developer and they are just let me say single in their whole life. They work.
Okay, I think I understand your question. So you are asking if it's possible to be a standalone developer, and then if it's possible to also work in a team.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if you are following me, I mentioned full stack developer. So those full stack developers are the standalone developer. So they have both knowledge of the front end part and the back end part. So they don't need the back end. Let's say I'm a back end engineer. I don't need the front end engineer to do anything. I take care of my front end work and then I do my back end part. If I'm a front end engineer and I also have knowledge of the back end, I don't need back end engineers. So that way I can work alone. Some even go as far as working. Some go as far as learning DevOps. So after building the website, they deploy it themselves, manage the hosting, manage the server, manage everything. So if it's possible that way, you can actually go into it. But how will I put it? The most the recommended way to go about it is pick a path and stick to it and become expert in it, build on it. I know of a particular teenager, Eniola Osabia. We actually worked on some projects together during the HNG internship. He's a full stack developer with DevOps included. So a very young guy. So there are people like that. Abdramon, let's hear you. Unmute yourself, Abdramon. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
join.
good afternoon.
Yeah, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah,
clearly.
I would actually like to okay. Well, I really enjoyed the lecture. It was quite insightful and I really got one or two things. So I would like to ask one or two questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, are you with me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first question is, it says something about machine language and AI. Are they actually like specialties under Java?
Yeah, you're asking if machine learning and AI are. I didn't get that. Does anyone else have question? Abdramon can try to contact me later or drop the question on the WhatsApp group. I'll attend to it. Okay, there is a question on the group chat. Number one, it said, does ISP have access to our information? And then secondly, it said, can we use WordPress to create all kind of websites? If yes, what is the benefit of learning HTML, CSS, and the likes over WordPress? Okay, this question is fantastic. So I'll let you know something. You know, some people say for every advantage, for everything that has an advantage, there is also a disadvantage. So the problem with no code websites, no code, uh, the problem with no code development, that is you developing websites without coding, is that those tools you are using to build the website are themselves built on the coding. They use code to build those applications that we are using to build websites. Okay, let me give you a fantastic example. I don't know if we have graphic designer in the house. So can someone tell me the difference between using tools like Canva, Poster My Wall, and so on, compared to someone that uses Adobe Photoshop, um, CorelDRAW, or InDesign and the likes to create his own designs. There's difference because there's limitation to what one can achieve with those tools. But with coding, you are given full-fledged opportunity. There's no limit to what you can do. Let's just put it that way. So I hope I answered your question. As for the first question, yes, the ISP have access to our information. I don't know if we ever notice that probably when we are using applications like YouTube, or we are using any application that uh, we are using any application that displays ads, you see that those ads that they display sometimes have a connection with us, and you'll be wondering that how come they know that so and so. There was a scenario one time that someone said she was at the airport, and then she saw a bag about 2 lines away. They were on a queue, and then she saw a bag about 2 lines away, and then she was like, "Oh wow!" In her mind, though, she didn't say anything out. Though. It was like, "Oh wow, this bag is fantastic." And then the next minute, while using her application, she saw an ad displaying that same bag, that exact bag she saw. How is that possible? Both of them are in the same hall. Their locations on the phone might have been on, and that is what companies are looking for. They pay to get our data so that they can serve us better. So definitely, the person in charge or the computer in charge of the ads must have known that she would have seen the bag, and then she might like it. So it displays the ad. If she doesn't, she can decide not to see it anymore, but she will see it the first time. So that's how that works. So I hope I've answered your question. If you have any other questions, ensure to drop them on the WhatsApp group chat. I would attend to them. So on this note, I'm going to end this call. Thank you very much for sparing time to join, and I hope you have one or two things that you are going to take home.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Okay, Alade wants to say something.
No, I said thank you very much. I was trying to appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, you are welcome. You are welcome.
God bless you. Jazakallah.
Who will get the recording?